Hi, everyone. It's Christy, and I am so grateful for how this community has grown. And I want to make sure that you have time to enjoy it. That's why, starting today, Everyday Sommelier is moving to a bi-weekly rhythm. This gives you space to listen, space to reflect, and live what you've learned in every single glass. Because wine isn't about rushing, it's about connection, conversation, and confidence. So join me now every other week for your dose of wine knowledge and continue to learn wine your way. When I used to think of sparkling wine, the first thing that came to mind was, of course, champagne. When it came to sweet wines, of course, Sauternes. But what if I told you that there were new regions right here in the good old US of A, producing amazing traditional method sparkling wines, as well as some unbelievably fresh and lovely dessert wines out of hybrid grapes. Welcome to Everyday Sommelier, where we make learning about wine approachable, fun, and something you can actually enjoy. I'm your host, Christy Mayfield. Think of me as your sommelier next door, here to help you cut through the complexity so you can enjoy every glass with confidence and learn wine your way. I admit it, when I'm exploring new wine regions, I tend to stick to things like still wines, wanting to know a little bit more maybe of new varietals or the way traditional varietals might taste in a new region, a new climate, or just under new winemaking techniques. However, what I am going to share with you today is how sparkling wines and dessert wines can also be amazing new styles for you to try in an unpredictable and non-traditional way with hybrid grapes as we continue last week's episode with the Dancing Dragonfly team. I am back at Dancing Dragonfly, and we're going to continue our conversation with James and Mark today, but we're going to move away from the still wines and spend a few minutes talking about some of the other styles of wine that have become tremendously valuable in your portfolio. And obviously, from a regional perspective, going back to hybrid grapes, some of the unique characteristics, very high acidity, potentially lower in tannin. And so what else beside a traditional still wine can you make from these varieties, and why are they ideally suited to do so? So over to you, Mark. You're the winemaker.
Sure. Well, as your listeners might have guessed, sparkling wines fit very nicely into that portfolio. And we're very fortunate that the owners here have an adventurous palate and want to explore multiple styles, whether it's sparkling or fortified or, the list goes on. When I started here in 2014, they had started a Champenoise program. It wasn't where it needed to be. We've taken it to the next level. I think our first release was in 2016. What you're drinking right now is a 21 vintage and went into tirage January or February of 22, and it was disgorged last winter. So we are well beyond the 30s that the French minimum for champagne. We're doing
Lease agent, decide.
Yes, it's entourage much longer than what I'm still trying to figure out with it is because of the varieties we use, and that's primarily Le Crescent, which is a very aromatic grape.
Mm-hmm. I can taste it.
Yeah. Even with that amount of time with yeast utilization, we get just little touches of nut and brioche. I'd like a lot more, so I'm playing with whether or not Le Crescent is the best variety. Okay. But for a very aromatic sparkling wine, it works well.
First of all, the nose, you do get the aromatics of a traditional method, long aging, long on the lees. Yep. But it also has those delicate fruit notes that it's almost like having a cobbler, or it really does have that prettiness to it. But then the aromatics, there's definitely a floral to this grape.
Yeah.
A heavy floral, but it's really pretty. And there is I don't know what the RS in this or what if this is a
this one's brut, but it's 1.2, so it's the very bottom of the brut level. We also from the same cuvee we do a brut nature, which theoretically is zero. And we do a demi-sec, again, at the bottom of demi-sec. Brut is the most common. It's also the most common that people are going to find out in the wild.
So right now, is your portfolio using Le Crescent, or do you do any traditional method sparkling with any other varietals right now?
Currently not. I'm going to be doing some trials. The nice thing, I guess, if you're a small producer and you want to venture into this, you can do it without any real special tools.
Yes.
Where anything that's forced carbonation or Charmat, that gets a bit more complicated.
Yes.
Now, we play around with that, not Charmat, but we do some forced carbonation wines as well, which are quick, easy, fun. We can do a lot of experimentation, but if a producer out there wants to even try, not a joke, take a cuvee, get yourself a jet stream, and carbonate it in your lab and taste it. Yeah, the bubbles are enormous and they go away really quick, but you can very quickly get an idea of if the cuvee is suitable to having CO2 pushing all those aromatics at you, because you cannot cheat. If you're doing a sparkling wine, that cuvee has to be perfect.
Right. And also, it's not just a 2 to 3 month experiment. You're talking 2 to 3 years before you're really getting it to the point where you want to release it. And that's a huge investment, not only of time, but it's a huge investment of capital to be sitting on to experiment with a different varietals. It takes a lot of guts to move out of your comfort zone.
Right.
And we also, I know we'll talk fortified wines as well, but, we, for one of our port style wines, we do a Solera system, which, again, for a lot of folks might be a scary venture to, go, oh, this is something I'm going to have to sit on for years and years and years and not really understand what it's going to be once it's bottled.
Right. And for our listeners, so the Solera system is an ancient tradition of winemaking in the fortified arena, where once you bottle some of it, you are basically refilling that empty space in that barrel
from the next
layer up. And so as you keep going down, it's a constant blending, and so you're blending across multiple years, maybe even multiple different batches or cuvées. So it's a cuvee upon a cuvee upon a cuvee, effectively, which is kind of that blending process. So, but it typically, when you think about the wine you're taking off of the Solera system and bottling, what is the average age of the wine for you guys?
Currently, it's about 8 years.
Wow.
We've been here 13 years. Winemaker prior to me had put some fortified wine in. We use 500-liter pungeons.
Okay.
And they had started it, so there was a year and a half. But it also took, frankly, me a few years to understand the concept of a Solera system and then to actually build it. And so currently we are 2 wide, 6 deep.
Okay.
So, and from those 2 wide, we have Solera A and B. We will take, on average, 1/2 of each of those annually.
Okay.
So the goal is to get the average age up to close to 12 years. It's just going to take another 4, 5, 6 years to get that done.
Interesting. So. And so tell us about, so when we're talking about fortified wine, it is fortified with something that is at a much higher alcohol level than your traditional still wines. What are you using for your fortification?
Up until last year, we were just getting a neutral grape spirit from California. So grapes, a wine that was distilled to Everclear status, if you will, for easy understanding. It comes in to us about 95% pure alcohol.
Whoa.
but it's made from grapes. That's the important part, is not from grains. Last year, we started distilling some of our own cuvées.
Okay.
And we started using that.
Which grape were you using, out of curiosity?
It was a combination of Frontenac Blanc and a little bit of Rihanna, about a 2/3, 1/3.
Interesting.
And the spirits from that are very nice. So much fruit on the aromatics. Even though they're technically neutral, they're worlds better than what we were getting.
Now, are you bottling the spirits now too, because they're so good?
We may or may not have a 10-gallon barrel sitting somewhere with sitting at 120 proof.
Okay.
Aging.
Fair enough.
Maybe.
Yeah. So these are processes that are hundreds of years old.
Mm-hmm.
You're now translating those with these newer varietals, kind of the new kids on the block. How are you, James, then able to translate that message? You've got this ancient process, but yet we're doing it in a completely different way. And what's the reaction from the tasting room perspective or the wine club perspective?
Yeah, so it's some of the attitudes towards port style wines in particular have been actually very, very well received. Especially there sometimes there's an attitude towards ports that they remember grandma and grandpa drinking out of the jug, and those extremely syrupy,
like grandma's sherry.
That very thick, heavy dessert. What is beautiful about these grapes here is across the board. Most producers up here, these port style wines are much lighter on the palate. There's still a lot of these great notes are coming from them, but without cloying on your palate like those old school ports that come in that people remember. And there is, again, some hesitance to it when we put on a paired flight or in the wine club shipment. But I gotta tell you, I would say a good 80% of the time, once somebody tries it, they go, "Oh my God, I want more of that. Please give me more of that."
And what's different then? So going from that really cloying, it's kind of the Riesling example that you used in our last episode. A lot of people have that perspective that Riesling is this cloyingly sweet, terrible wine, which, I think there's a lot of beautiful sweet Rieslings, but that's just me. Yeah. But how is part of that the winemaking process, Mark, or is part of that going back to just the DNA of the hybrids themselves with the higher acidity levels, et cetera?
I think that's exactly it. Frontenac is what many are using regionally for their fortified wines. And again, Frontenac with its higher acidity can support a higher level of sugar, which can support a higher level of alcohol. And the lower tannin certainly is not a detractor from a fortified wine, especially on the tannin side.
Back to that, looking for balance across alcohol, acidity, and sugar. And if one of them overpowers, I should say, the other, you get that either sticky sweet or something that just almost tastes fake when one's out of balance. Very cool.
I was going to say the other, we do 2 red ports of Ruby and Tawny. The Tawny, of course, is what we've been talking about with the Solera system. We also do, I'm always looking for different ideas and things that others aren't doing. We have a couple of our friendly neighbors that do white ports. I wasn't really interested in going that direction. So I had read about this very ancient French production, Pinot de Charentes. Most people haven't heard of it.
I have not heard of it.
Okay. I'll paraphrase. It's 1450, and James here's the cellar hand that's in charge of emptying barrels from the prior year, spirit barrels specifically. But he's kind of laxed in his responsibility. He sends me, the winemaker, a barrel that's still has 2/3 full of spirits in it. And I'm tired because it's the end of crush and I'm trying to fill these barrels, so I don't check to see if James did his job.
There's a little banter going on, I sense.
So we fill it up with Le Crescent, And the next spring, we realized this didn't ferment. Why not? But how
Too high alcohol.
Yeah, it never even got started. So kind of it's serendipity, a happy accident. Pinot de Charentes, instead of traditional fortified wine where you're fermenting some of the sugars down, maybe halfway, maybe 2/3, and then fortifying it. The Pinot, you're either starting straight up with juice or you're just fermenting. And in our case, because the sugars are quite high, fermenting it from 23 down to roughly 19, then stopping fermentation. So everything you taste in there, sweetness-wise, is from the Crescent. So it leaves us with something. Now, it also spends a little time on oak. So that's where some of the bouquet comes from. Mm-hmm. But sans oak, you have a cuvee that is more about aroma than bouquet. That makes sense. So you're smelling what the grape gives us without a lot of other influences. Now, the alcohol, of course, is an influence in that, and then the oak. Traditionally, that would be aged for a year or two. And I guess my impression of our clientele, this is the way this is done, younger, fresher, brighter, is going to be far more accepted regionally. And that has proven positive so far.
One would think, based upon the description you gave, that the alcohol level would be super hot, and it's not. You do feel the heat, but it's more like a nice rosy flush.
It's 17.5 thereabouts. So,
and it has all the things you talked about, but I don't scream sugar. I don't scream acidity. They really are very nicely paired in together. And this is a dessert wine for the type of person who maybe says, I don't like dessert wines because they're too sweet.
Yep.
This fits really beautifully into that. And I could think of a lot of things you could put this with.
Well, part of that too is the acidity that the Crescent gives us. And those same things translate into ice wines.
Yes.
But another aspect that we've learned after we did the Pinot initially is there is a tiny bit of resurgence, and your mixologists out there would be aware of this, for wine cocktails.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I tried some this summer that I played around with. I had a bottle at home. I drank almost exclusively sparkling water. I haven't had pop in years. But I don't want to drink something that's 17-18% alcohol, and I like bubbles. So, 50-50 Pinot and either a sparkling lemon or a sparkling blackberry water.
Oh, interesting.
It's fantastic. It works this time of year. It's apple season. It is really good with fresh apple cider.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. And I can see where these varietals, again, with that acidity that's just the backbone of every single hybrid I've tried, is going to hold up super well in both the wine cocktails as well as in any just individual pouring.
Yeah.
I hadn't really thought about it. And in the last episode, we were talking about just the shorter growing season here. And obviously, we all know the further north you go, the colder it is. So it has to be cold hardy. But to be able to get to these levels of ripeness, either you pull it off fairly early, or it's got the natural acidity already and lower sugar to do the sparkling wines, or if you leave it a little bit longer hang time to get a little bit more sugar and then stop the fermentation or whatever you want to do, fortify it. It sounds like not only are hybrids something people should explore if they're wanting more of an experience, they're wanting to step outside of traditional vitis vinifera varietals where we all know them. We've all had a Cab, we've all had a Chard, we've all had a Merlot, etc. But at the same point in time, from a winemaking perspective and also from just the general perspective of what we want wine to do, food and wine pairings, or even just sipping a beautiful wine on a great day like today, you're getting all of the best elements in hybrids, where in some of the more traditional varietals, if you wait too long to harvest them, or if your climate's just not right, your ripening season is too cool, you're struggling. So it almost seems like hybrids are even
friendlier from a winemaking perspective than what we think of as traditional.
So right now, many of us bring in a little bit of vinifera to do blending with.
Right.
Rounds things out, gives us some tannin, brings in some blue fruit, which we tend to lack. Most of our profiles are more red fruit oriented.
Right.
But James, don't you think it would be fun that sometime, maybe in the next 10 years, we're getting calls to have a juice or wine shipped out to California because they're just so tired of these flabby wines. And then, instead of bags and bags of Tartaric, we're adding in some Frontenac or some Marquette. Would that be fun?
That would be. I mean,
coming full circle, Mark. That is really full circle, that concept.
And, there have been kind of those whisperings of kind of big wine regions looking at what we've been doing because their climate's changing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to Mark's point, a couple of other wineries, we do a wine hangout once a month. And we blind taste.
Our little study group.
Yeah, a little study group. And we will blind taste, we'll pick a region or pick a style of wine. We blind taste and throw local wines in with these blind tastings.
Mm-hmm.
And we did one with Pinot Noir. And the consensus from, a lot of us was, there, especially the warmer regions in California, there's just no backbone to the wine. Granted, our palates are really used to acidity up here, but even within the last 10, 15 years, it feels like some of those regions, the acidity has just ripened out of the grapes. And, for those who seek out those wines, there will be those regions that are going to go, oh, well, now what do we do? Well,
you'll find this really interesting, Christy. On that particular tasting, the fan favorite of the 7 or 8 people that were there was a $10.50 Pinot that was Georgian. The country, not the state.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it won by a significant margin. And we had some very nice Pinots there.
I think that speaks to the conversation we've been having around if you're a wine lover and you really want to understand everything a grape can deliver, sometimes you have to stop thinking about tradition and start thinking beyond that. And I'm seeing such great and exciting things happening here. You mentioned Finger Lakes. We're seeing it in Texas. I mean, Hudson Valley, Missouri's having a resurgence. There's so much going on. Yet we see the industry overall having some struggles. I think the industry could really benefit from more of an embracing what's new, different, exciting, and balance that with tradition. Not get away from tradition. We need that. Right. We all learn from that. That's the core of the wine industry. But being more open to some of the new things that are going on, I think we're going to be bringing more and more people back into wine, because to me, wine is the natural connector.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yep. And being able to kind of flex our new young, status also, I think can also aid a little bit in what I see a lot within going back to, like I said last time with the snobbery aspect, right? It's, this is a liquid that we created 8,000 years ago to purify our water. Maybe sometimes we need to take it a step back and not take it incredibly as seriously as we do. We can still be nerdy about it. We can still really enjoy it. But at the end of the day, we're farmers that are producing a product no different than, anything else
Corn.
that comes.
Yeah. Corn, soybeans.
Yep.
I love it.
And if we talk more about embracing tradition, but also embracing regionality, we have 40 acres of vines here. 2025 vintage is 100% estate grown. We've never been below 60% estate grown, required to have a majority percentage of Wisconsin grown fruit. But that has been the focus. And each year that we go, while we will still bring in vinifera for certain applications and certain blending, that's not the focus. The focus is to do the best we can with what we have. And there's always going to be some shortcomings within that. That's where we implement fruit from elsewhere in the blend.
Great. From a perspective of still wines, I love high acidity wines. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit partial, but I think that everyone is looking for that transition back to some more freshness. I think they go year round. I think they go, whether you're eating and drinking a glass of wine together or just having a glass by itself, acidity matters. Mm-hmm. And I think from a perspective of some of the global challenges we're seeing, you guys probably are sitting in one of the nicest positions to really be at the forefront of some exciting things in the future. And I congratulate you guys on what you're doing here. And I can't wait to try some more wines.
Please come and try these, cold climate hybrids. I mean, not only is it something new, but, you might just find a new grape that you're going to fall in love with. Cabernet is great, but not necessarily all the time.
It's not everything.
Yeah.
It's not everything. And embrace, you've already, as the U.S. has already embraced nicely eating local. We can keep working on drinking local.
That's a great finishing point, Mark. Thank you for that. And thank you guys so much for your time. These last episodes have been really exciting, and I personally am a huge fan of hybrids, and I'm just looking forward to seeing what you guys continue to do.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Cheers.
This wraps up our two-part discovery of hybrid grapes and all the unique styles of wine that come from it, especially when we're talking about things where high acidity reigns king or queen. I know you've enjoyed this, so please do me the honor of sharing Everyday Sommelier podcast with your wine-loving friends. You know they would love to tune in, and I would be honored to have them here. I'd also love to announce we have changed our Instagram handle. It is now at Kristi, Kristi _Sip Society Collective. You can find that in the show notes. So pop on over and follow us on Instagram as well, and join www.sipsocietycollective.com. Pop on over, sign up for our newsletter, and stay in the know of all the exciting things to come with Sip Society. As we are wrapping up the year, we are also wrapping up the first year of Everyday Sommelier podcast. So in honor of our 1-year anniversary, just on the horizon, we are going to be releasing some of your favorite episodes over the next couple of weeks. If you haven't listened to them, you're going to love them. And if you have listened to them, I know listening again will bring back great information that you can use while you learn wine your way. Cheers.